Good morning. Woo, and welcome. It's wonderful to see smiling eyes in the room and to imagine the smiles under the masks. So lovely to see at least the top half of so many faces. We welcome those of you gathered here in person in this space in Southwest Edmonton. And we also welcome those of you who are joining us online, wherever you find yourself this morning, in the comfort of your living room or at your kitchen table or wherever it is that you're joining us from. We are one spiritual community, whether we gather virtually or we gather in a three-dimensional form in this space. We are one spiritual community, spiritual seekers, united in our search for compassion, integrity, justice, love, equity, and so much more. Welcome to the first gathering in this last month of 2021, our gathering for December the 5th, 2021, as we continue our Advent journey exploring the postures of Advent, and today we give focus to the posture of expecting. And we come together with each other to sing and to pray, to seek wisdom for our living, to reflect on how it is we're living and want to be living, and to hold space for the trouble and the beauty of our world and of our lives. Along with my teammate Chris, I bring our gratitude for our instrumentalists today. We have Katie at the piano, Catherine on bass, Larry on drums, Janice on clarinet, Anne on sax, Noah on trombone. And we're grateful to our tech team in the booth today, to Andrea and Dara and Joseph, and also to our song leaders, Deb and Pam to the power of two. We also acknowledge the land that holds us, the land to which we seek to be faithful, the land in which we seek to reduce our harm and foster right relationship with respect, and remembering its first peoples, the first to learn its wisdom, its treasures, its secrets, its rhythms. For those of us in the SSUC communities of Edmonton and Saskatoon, we recognize our commitment to Treaty 6 territory and the Indigenous people whose story is long in this land. Wherever your feet are placed today, those of you joining us online, whether you're in treaty territory or unceded territory, may we all make an intention to walk in ways that heal the wounds of our history, of broken trust, and build a more equitable relationship, healing the deep wounds of the past and genuinely embracing our common humanity, whether as settlers, refugees, or Indigenous peoples. In this Advent season, we seek to find light in one another.
So those of you that are in the room today, I'm not sure if you might go through a little bit of withdrawal because you don't get to light your own candle this morning. You could all come up and light these, but that would take us a little bit of time. For those of you at home, we invite you to light your Advent candles with us this morning. And as we've been talking about the postures of Advent, we're going to light a candle that represents that first step, that first week of Advent, where we focused on the posture of watching, the awareness of the realities of life, but not letting that get our focus too zoomed in on that, and rather opening us to an awareness and attentiveness to the moments of wonder, the moments of hope that we can spot in each and every day. And today is the second week of Advent, so it's our second step along this journey to Christmas. And so we light the second candle now that burns for the way we live in expectation, that we are expecting, and all that we are and all who we are is part and embodies all that could be. So as we light our candles here and you light them at home, and we celebrate that we are surrounded with light, infused with light, we know that even so, it's only the second step on this journey to Christmas. We're waiting for more of it, waiting for more light.
We are waiting now for the coming of a new day. We are waiting for more light to come. We are waiting now for the coming of a new day. We are waiting for more light to come. We are hoping now for some calm within the fray. We are hoping for more light to come. We are hoping now for some calm within the fray. We are hoping for more light to come. We are working now so our mercy won't delay. We are working for more light to come. We are working now so our mercy won't delay. We are working for more light to come. There'll be a just day in a world that's gone astray. We are waiting for more light to come. There'll be a just day in a world that's gone astray. We are waiting for more light to come.
Today's story is called The Jade Stone. I should tell you who wrote it. Well, it's a Chinese folk tale, so who knows who wrote it or told it. But this adaptation, this book, is by Karen Yakowitz, and it's illustrated by Juhong Chen. I'm not going to hold a book and this at the same time, so we can see the pictures. If only I had one more hand. Long ago in China, there lived a stone carver named Chan Lo. Chan Lo spent his days carving birds and deer and water buffalo from the colored stones he found near the river. "How do you know what to carve?" his young apprentice asked. "I always listen to the stone," replied Chan Lo. "The stone tells me what it wants to be." People came from near and far to buy Chan Lo's carvings. So it happened that when the great emperor of all China was given a perfect piece of green and white jade stone, one of the advisors in the celestial palace thought of Chan Lo. The humble stone carver was brought before the great emperor of all China. Chan Lo bowed deeply. "I want you to carve a dragon," the emperor commanded, "a dragon of wind and fire." "I will do my best to please you," Chan Lo said. The emperor's men carried the precious stone to Chan Lo's garden. Chan Lo had never seen such a perfect piece of jade. The great emperor had commanded, "A dragon of wind and fire." Chan Lo wondered if that was what the stone wanted to be. He spoke to the stone. "Here I stand, O noble stone, to carve a creature of your own. Whisper signs and sounds from rock that I, your servant, may unlock." Chan Lo bent down and put his ear to the stone, and from deep inside came a gentle sound. Pata, pata, pata. Do dragons make that sound? Chan Lo wondered. Perhaps the dragon's tail splashing in the ocean says pata, but he wasn't sure. So that evening, Chan Lo ate his rice cakes and sipped his tea, and he thought about dragons. In his dreams, he heard pata, pata. The next morning, Chan Lo went to the garden. He put his ear to the green and white jade and listened again. Softly, the sounds came. Bub, bub, bubble, bub, bub, bubble. Do dragons make that sound? Chan Lo wondered, perhaps a dragon rising from the wild waves blows bubbles through his nostrils? He didn't know. But these were not mighty dragon bubbles coming from the rock. They were gentle, lazy, playful bubbles. Chan Lo's heart grew heavy because he had not heard the emperor's dragon. That evening, when Chan Lo ate his rice cakes and sipped his tea, he tried hard to think about dragons. That evening, Chan Lo decided to listen one last time. He ran his hands over the jade. His fingers felt tiny ridges. Sa, sa, went his fingers over the stone. Do dragons have ridges? Yes, he decided. Yes, they have scales on their tails and bodies, and their scales might say, sa, sa, if one dared to touch them. But Chan Lo knew these small, delicate ridges were not dragon scales. Chan Lo could not carve what he didn't hear, but he was afraid to disobey the emperor. His fear weighed heavy in him like a great stone as he picked up his tools and began to carve. He worked slowly and carefully. Do you know for how long? A year and a day. Finally, a year and a day came and the carving was complete. Early in the morning, before the birds were awake, Chan Lo and his apprentice wrapped the jade carving in a cloth and set out for the celestial palace. Chan Lo entered the great hall where the three advisors sat waiting for the great emperor of all China. He placed the jade stone on the table in the center of the room. And at that moment, the emperor himself was carried into the great hall. "Show me my dragon of wind and fire," the emperor ordered. The advisors whisked the cloth away. "This is not my dragon," the emperor roared, his eyes dark with anger, his voice rolling like black thunder. "Oh, mighty emperor, there is no dragon of wind and fire," Chan Lo said, his knees shaking like ginkgo leaves in the wind. "I did not hear it. I heard these 3 carp fish swimming playfully in the reeds in the pool of the celestial palace." "Hear it? You did not hear it?" The emperor's words burned Chan Lo's ears. "Take him away." The emperor ordered Chan Lo imprisoned and that the jade stone be removed from the celestial palace. The carving was placed outside near the reed of the reflecting pool. The advisors gathered around the emperor. "What shall the carver's punishment be?" "I will let my dreams decide," said the emperor. That night the emperor dreamed of fish playfully slapping their tails in green water. Pata, pata. And fish gliding smoothly through deep, clear water. Bub, bub, bubble. And tiny ridged scales. Sa, sa. The emperor ordered that the jade stone... Oops, I read that already. Let's try this one. The emperor woke up, but he still heard the strange sound. Sa. He got out of bed, went toward the sound. He hurried down the corridors, through the great hall, out into the moonlit garden, and there by the reflecting pool was the jade stone. And next to it stood the stone carver's apprentice, running his fingers down the scales of the 3 carpfish. Sa, sa, sa. The shining scales of the jade carp glowed in the moonlight. The fish's slippery bodies were reflected in the pool. They seemed ready to flick their tails and swim among the reeds. The emperor sat near the pool, gazing at the jade stone until his advisors found him at sunrise. The great emperor smiled an imperial smile. "Bring Chan Lo before me," he said. Chan Lo bowed deeply before the emperor. "You have disobeyed me, Chan Lo, but you are a brave man to defy the great emperor of all China. You have carved the creatures that were in the stone. I, too, have heard them. These 3 carpfish are dearer to me than any dragon of wind and fire. What reward would you have?" Chan Lo bowed lower still. "Great emperor, your happiness with my work is my reward. I wish only to return to my village and carve what I hear." "You will carve what you hear," said the emperor, "and return to your village in a way befitting the master carver to the great emperor of all China." I read this story today because we're talking about expectations. Chan Lo had a different expectation than the emperor, and Chan Lo was very brave. He was brave enough to be honest with himself and with those around him and with the art and the work that he created. And so we thank this old story for some wisdom to share with us. And thank you for joining me up here. An invitation this morning. Daisy and Ariane are prepared to have a wonderful Adventy Christmassy lesson in the small hall for any children that are here today, and you're welcome to go to the small hall with them if you would like to participate.
Let us sing this song for the turning of the world, that we may turn as one. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our turning. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our turning. Sing this song for the healing of the world, that we may heal as one. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, sing this song for the loving of the world, that we may love as one. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our loving. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our loving.
We hear wisdom now from yet another tradition. These are words that Hopi elders in Arizona offered to their people in leadership, speaking into the turn of the century, around the turn of the century into the year 2000. And so we receive their wisdom for our living today.
We are now reminded to be aware of our place upon this earth and to fulfill our obligations to ourselves, our families, nations, the natural world, and to the Creator. The words say we are to awaken, stand up, be counted. For you are being recognized in the spirit world.
Ambe Majada, give Bidaba, Gini Gume, Gana Gunagin Guba, Gini Gume, Gana Gunagin Guba. Ambe Majada, give Bidaba, Gini Gume, Gana Gunagin Guba, Gini Gume, Gana Gunagin Guba.
Expectations are tricky, aren't they? I don't know about you, but I sometimes find myself afraid of expecting too much, and just as afraid of expecting nothing at all. It's a familiar temptation to live in the middle of hoping for the best and preparing for the worst, of being timid, of holding unrealistic expectations, while wondering if there is any such thing as a realistic expectation. I find it curious that the stories that give us this season begin with expectations. They're populated with expectant parents. Not just the two we think of right away, not just that female lead we're going to dress in blue and that male supporting actor we're going to dress in brown and place them in our pageants and our nativity scenes. Not just the familiar characters of Mary and Joseph, those characters on the brink of becoming partners, not expecting to be parents yet. Characters who are navigating the social norms and the expectations of their time and their culture, navigating the birth of an untimely child. But the stories also give us two other characters who are expecting an unexpected child. Elizabeth and Zachariah. Luke's version of the birth of Jesus introduces us, first of all, to the birth of his cousin, John, born to parents who believed they were well beyond the age of ever having a child. And this birth exceeded their wildest expectations. We inherit a tradition that's rooted in a story of characters whose realities defied their expectations. We get the impression that perhaps Elizabeth and Zachariah had in some way come to terms with the reality of infertility. They had come to a place where they were no longer hoping for a child and made peace with the expectations of their families and their societies, so much so that the story makes Zachariah speechless when he comes to the shock of learning that he's an expectant father, having struggled so many years with all that it means in the ancient world to die without an heir. So if we fast forward a few decades to a story of these two unexpected children as young adults, the tradition tells us that both John and Jesus of Nazareth grew up radically critical of the economic corruption of their empire and what it did to the most vulnerable people, and the collusion of their religious leaders in aiding and abetting the oppression of their people. In the way that first century story has come down to us, John is in prison, and Jesus is still at large. And John sends his followers to make inquiries of Jesus, and this is how one first century story writer relates the story. The disciples of John told him about the things they were hearing about Jesus of Nazareth. So John sent two of his disciples to Jesus to ask, "Are you the one we've been waiting for, or should we expect another?" And Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. Tell him what you see happening among the blind, the left, the deaf, the lame, the lepers, the dead, and the poor." as those who are waiting for the kind of leadership that will help us solve our global crises, the kind of leadership that will save us from the worst in ourselves, that will keep us from destroying this planetary home. I think we can identify with those first century expectations that come so tightly wrapped in that question John sent his followers to ask of Jesus. Are you the one we've been expecting? Or should we look for another? That's our consumer-oriented question. Am I investing my hope in you wisely, or am I wasting my time on you? John's question wasn't a cynical question. It was a desperate one. He saw the writing on the wall. He knew his days were numbered. Herod had already imprisoned him. John must have been desperate to find another to whom to pass his torch, someone to throw his support behind, someone to refer his followers to, some movement they could associate themselves with after his death. And with wisdom and humility, as the story comes down to us, Jesus doesn't answer the question John has asked. Instead, he invites John's disciples to go back and tell their leader what it is they were seeing. Go back and tell John what it is they see that Jesus is identified with. What's happening among the most vulnerable members of their society? Go back and talk about what you see happening at the margins. Go back and describe the movement of energy you see among the most desperate. Go back and tell John where you have seen hope and possibility. Isn't that a way of saying, I'm not the one we've been waiting for, but we are the ones we've been waiting for. For centuries, ancient Israel had been waiting for a Messiah, a charismatic leader, a king like David who united the people 1,000 years earlier, a great warrior, someone who could restore the national and political identity, someone who could lead a military victory against the Romans and bring independence and restore national pride and homeland security, someone who could usher in a golden age of prosperity. And instead, Jesus of Nazareth, like the best of our leaders across history, was a great movement builder, a community organizer, a vision maker who inspired vision keepers, a leader like John himself, whose tenure was brief and whose contribution to change would be made generation by generation, of those whose courage and inspiration translated his vision of a just community into their own time and their own place, to be light for their world as he was for his. History loves messiahs. We love the quest for messiahs. We love the coronation of messiahs. We love beating up on messiahs. We love getting them on their thrones, and we love knocking them off their thrones. And then moving on to the next one and repeating the cycle over and over again. We love to make someone into more than they can ever be and then discredit and dethrone them when they disappoint us. We love pinning our hopes on another and downloading our responsibilities as a species onto a few prime candidates. In 1981, in a poem for South African women, American poet and activist June Jordan first coined the phrase, "We are the ones we've been waiting for." In 2006, Alice Walker picked it up and made it the title of a book she wrote. Sweet Honey in the Rock turned it into a song. Barack Obama evoked both controversy and inspiration when he spoke those words on the campaign trail. And at the turn of the century, this century, in a manifesto to their people, Hopi elders sought to inspire their nation with this vision. We are the ones we've been waiting for. These wise words remind us we can't delegate our responsibility as human beings. We can't give it over. We can't give over our collective responsibility to another, or even surrender it to any God of our understanding. The power of the Jesus movement was and is knowing itself to be bigger than any one person. That it would not die with its leader because it was entrusted and embodied in a community whose identity as a collective was to be the ones we're waiting for. To be a radical community of extraordinary compassion. Those whose love would be extended to our enemies. We live in a star-seeking society, whether it's in sports or politics or art or education or science or medicine or business or religion. And this season of Advent comes with its light to invite us into a counterculture, to resist the urge to pin the tail on another donkey, where we counter our quest for messiahs by assuming our own personal and collective responsibility. We're the ones. We're the ones we've been waiting for. It's not arrogant self-understanding. It's an essential assumption of our responsibility for participating in the culture we long for someone to create, to build together the society we dream of, to make it the world we want to pass on to our children and their children. There's great wisdom in the prophecy of the Hopi elders. This is the time to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for. When we pray with one another, it's one of the ways we strengthen the muscle of our intention to live in the ways that are most faithful to our deepest and highest humanity. And so we take this moment of intention to speak our prayer with one another, that it may translate our intention from our words to our hearts, that we might pray with our feet to be the answer to those things for which we pray. So we share these words in that spirit, in our many voices, with one another. We arrive again in this season that is laden with expectations, weighted with traditions and memories. We've learned to guard our hearts, to quiet our expectations. We've learned to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Amid our hopes and longings for ourselves and our world, we pause to open ourselves to possibilities for which we haven't dared to hope. May we find the courage to unshield our hearts, allow ourselves to open to surprising kindness, acts of compassion, and expressions of equity and justice. May we be brave enough to face reality and still do all the best where we can, for as long as we can, exceeding our wildest expectations. May love have its way in us.
If I had one wish I could wish for you, if I had one gift I could give, if there could only be one perfect song to sing, it would be peace. Peace to all. If I had one hope I could leave with you, if I had one blessing to give, if there could only be one message on the wind, it would be peace, peace to all.
We're all thinking about Christmas coming and all the gifts that we want to buy for those we love and care about. And if you want something you don't have to wrap, and if you want something that's really quite meaningful, giftswithvision.ca is a destination to go to find lots of things that you can give to people that also support the many causes and partners we have across the world and across the country. We did highlight last week a Giving Tuesday promotion that Gifts with Vision had, trying to get support for vaccinations around the world, especially in countries where vaccinations are low and where vaccinations are not readily available to the public. And last week, Canadians in the United Church gave approximately 3,300 vaccinations that will go out around the world to those who need them most. So if you were part of that last week, thank you. You can still donate to that cause or hundreds of others in the catalog at giftswithvision.ca. I want to also invite you. There are a number of people in the room today who took advantage and registered to be here in person. You too can do that as well. For 2 upcoming Sundays, a Blue Christmas evening gathering on Wednesday the 15th, and newly opened, you can now reserve your spot for 2 Christmas Eve gatherings at 6 and 8 p.m. We will love to see you in the room here on Christmas Eve, and we'll celebrate together. And of course, we will live stream that 6 p.m. gathering for those of you who we will be thrilled to celebrate with while you're at home. Thanks to each and every one of you. It's not just the cookie walk that has your generosity on display. It's really all the time. For those of you who support us, we thank you so much. If you'd like to support SSUC through any number of ways that you see on your screen, you can do that. We are so grateful for all the ways that you continue to support us so that we can do all the things we're used to doing, supporting projects, supporting ministries and the work of this congregation, and supporting all the neighborhood and community groups that are coming back to use our space now and find it so necessary for the life of those groups within our community. So thank you for all the ways that you support us.
Birth in a manger, life as a stranger, Mary's child Jesus, long years ago. Over the ages, servants and sages
We don't wait for someone else to light our candle. We can't wait for someone else to bring hope or peace to our living. Our expectations are that we will light a match, that we will do the work of Christmas. And as we journey toward lighting more light in our journey toward Christmas, we change this light. We have the power to change the light in our life to glow in the form that we need it to glow. Be it light, be it smoke, whatever's needed. And so we go into this week with inspiration, with wisdom, to know that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. May we go in a sense of hope and peace as we do the work of Advent.